This
afternoon, everyone.
conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in the lecture series on research methodology. I hope you liked the yesterday session. And today is the second day of our lecture series. Today's session on the topic of study design, which is going to be presented by Dr. Poonam Savarkar ma'am. She has completed her BMS, MD and PhD in Panchkarma. Also done a certificate course of Kalian Panchkarma, Kerala, CGO. At present, she is an associate professor and PhD supervisor in Department of Panchkarma in Mahatma Gandhi Ayurved College, Hospital and Research Center, Solan, Wardha. She has an experience of 12 years in research studies with teaching experience of 9 years and 10 months. Her achievement and awards are she got the Best Houseman Award in 2010 in the postgraduate training period at R.A. Poddar Ayurved Medical College, Worli, Mumbai. She also got Best Student Award in 2010. She got 6 Best Paper Awards, 2 Best Poster Awards, 6 Best Essay Awards, and 19 copyright received. She wrote 77 research articles, a total 47 paper and 2 poster presentation in various international and national conferences. She working as associate editor, editorial board member, reviewer in International Journal of Medical and Medical Science Research, International Journal of Scientific Research. She completed 10 research projects, 1 with Ayush and 8 with university level, and she has 3 ongoing research projects. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Poonam Savarkar ma'am to present today's session on the topic of study design and its role in research field for the students. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much, doctor, for giving such a nice introduction of me. Thank you very much. First of all, welcome to all dear PG scholar and PhD scholar, all respected senior faculties, my colleagues, and all my dear students. Here, I will share some of my views regarding the research study design. As a medical researcher, I think you are all aware about this term, that is the research study design, which is the very core part of the any research project. A proper and appropriate selection of research design is very, very essential for any kind of fruitful research. Yesterday, our Dr. Dean, respected Kuchewar ma'am, has highlighted over the introductory aspect of the research proposal, and I will carry it for the further process. I think my PPT is visible and my voice is also audible very well.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. These are some contents of my presentation, which I will share in some minutes. First of all, introduction. As I already told, research design is a very important and core topic of any proposal, and it is exclusively and vividly elaborated in the various textbooks of the research. It is quite theoretical one also. But through this presentation, I have tried as my best as possible to compile it in a very concise manner and precise manner. Okay, if there is any lacuna, kindly ignore it. I will try to improve it for the next time or for the next presentation. But before going to our research study design, I will focus some important types of research, medical research, especially medical research, which we are focusing as a medical fraternity. First of all, as we are already aware what is the research, and research is the very systematic process to generate knowledge, to update knowledge, etc. And definitely medical research, it primarily aimed to find out some certain solutions in the medical problems. And the health or the such kind of medical research can be conducted at the 2 level. First one, that is the individual level, and at the community level for the society. For the individual level, such kind of research when carried out, it is primarily planned to promote the health behavior of that particular person, and in order to prevent the disease or to rule out the causative factor or aggravating factor of the disease. First important advantage of that such kind of research is it is very essential, or it becomes helpful to study the etiology of the specific disease. In order, moreover, it is also useful to make the early diagnosis of an any kind of disease or clinical condition at an early stage, and to make available adequate and appropriate treatment modalities for that individual, and to induce rehabilitation done at individual level if patient is suffering from the chronic entity. On the other hand, at the community level, such kind of medical research is primarily planned to improve the health facilities and health services among the community, and in order to prevent and control programs, and to decrease the stigma in the population due to which occurred as a result of particular disease, and to build the healthy nation. So these are all aims of the medical research which can carried out at the different level. According the medical research, depending upon the source from which the data can be evaluated, it can be classified into one, that is first one primary and second one secondary. That is primary, where the new knowledge is generated which is entirely novel for the individual and society also. The example of such kind of primary research is the epidemiological study or the various clinical trials which are generally carried out in the current era. And such kind of studies are entirely focused over the distribution of diseases, or to compare the magnitude of the disease, and to develop some health related facilities to pacify such disorder. On the other hand, the secondary type of research are completely composed of the critical analysis of the existing information which is available in the classical text of modern science, or any classical text of Ayurveda, or any science. The meta-analysis, review article, and systematic review. These are some examples of these are secondary type of medical research. On the other hand, the second classification of medical research is which can be based on the nature, that is whether it is qualitative one or quantitative one. Generally, the qualitative studies are carried out with the help of some questionnaire or some personal interviews, discussion, or open-ended questions, etc. These are generally observational in nature. On the other hand, the quantitative type of medical research, which are generally descriptive in nature, correlational, which can correlate the cause and effect relationship, and experimental studies also, which we'll discuss in further presentations. Based on the direction, medical research can be subclassified into, that is the retrospective one and prospective one. Generally, in the retrospective medical research, information on the outcome is already available, but just we have to observe that exposure and effect, and we have to correlate it and analyze it in a very systematic manner. On the other hand, the prospective type of medical research, it is just observation of people who are at risk or who are at exposure, who are at exposed to some causative factor of that particular disease, and then the outcome or the developing disease in that particular conditions. Now, why we have selected this topic? As we discussed before, there are some types of medical research, primary, secondary, etc. So, until and unless if we want to make all aforesaid research which should be become fruitful or sound, we have to select appropriate kind of research design which can in which your research proposal can be fitted very well, and it can be implemented in a smooth manner for the sound and authentic conclusions. Because any kind of misjudgment while during this phase can lead to a futile kind of research on which may become useless, or it may become due to the only waste of time or resources or money also. Moreover, there are certain challenges in designing and implementing any kind of research study. So that's why to overcome these challenges, proper selection of study design is very essential. Along with that, it is also essential to nullify or minimize the effects of confounder. What are the confounders? As a medical researcher, you are, I think, already aware about that term, but I will repeat it. It is a confounder are such entities which alter over the true relation between the study variables and outcome, and definitely it will automatically adversely affect the total outcome of the study. I will give a certain example for that. If I want to observe the effect of physical exercise or morning walk to reduce the weight, and I have choose some certain kind of population for that, including specific BMI, and I ask them, or I advise them to do to take morning exercise for stipulated time. It may be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, etc. And I will assess the patient after the specific period, that is 1.5 months, and I will again assess the all objective criteria which I have already taken in my study. But in this scenario, if patient have taken some not a low calorie diet, which is also helpful to reduce the weight, and ultimately when I will assess the patient after a stipulated duration, I will observe some specific kind of significant weight reduction in that particular individual. That is, some are following, some are not following. But there is some question mark whether the effect of physical exercise is over the weight is responsible for weight reduction or low calorie diet. Here my exposure I am, or my aim is, that is to study the effect of morning walk over the weight reduction. But here low calorie diet is the confounding factor. So if we have to nullify the effect of such confounding factor, we have to select the proper research design. That is study design as per the our classical text, classical references. It is I have already said about that is a very primary or integral part of the methodology, and generally it is a stipulated, or it is a scientific format or protocol which convert the conceptual thought of statement or our hypothesis into an operational act, in a standard operational act. And based of direction, such type of study design can be categorized into retrospective, prospective, and ambidirectional also, which we will see one by one. Now, the first classification of the epidemiological study, that is which is the primary type of medical research, and generally it is commonly useful to collect the data regarding the various health services to develop or to calculate the magnitude of the disease, to prevalence of the disease, to incidence of the disease, etc. And such epidemiological study can be better categorized into descriptive one and analytical one. And descriptive studies, these are can be done at two levels, that is individual level, that is from person to personal specific data, and the population level, that is the group of person. So if we are studying the case, if we are planning descriptive data on a individual base, then case report, case series, and cross-sectional survey, these are the good example of such type of studies. On the other hand, if we are performing this survey or performing this study in a particular group of person or population, it is called as ecological study, survey, or census. It is the best example of such kind of descriptive epidemiological study. On the other hand, analytical type or analytical research type or analytical research design, whether we are planning any intervention or not. If no, then it is the observational study. If yes, then it is the experimental or individual one. And observational data, depending upon the direction of this study, it can again subclassified into case control, cohort study, cross-sectional study. All these three types of study are observational in nature. On the other hand, interventional study, it is again subclassified on the different heads, such as depending upon the randomization, that is NRCT, non-randomized control trial, or randomized control trial. Depending upon the blinding, it may be simple blind, double blind, or triple blind also. Based on the slide, it is the community based or clinical based or lab based, and based on design, it is the simple one or parallel one or crossover one. So this is the subcategories of the various interventional disease. Now, in this lecture, I will focus only the observational study design, because RCT or interventional studies will be carried out or discussed by some another speaker. So, first we will focus over the descriptive studies. Actually, the descriptive studies only describes the characteristic of particular situation or any health event or any case in terms of time, place, and person, and through which that it gives the answer of the research question by asking the individual by what, when, where, how, for an event. And best example of such kind of descriptive study is the case report or case study and the case series. So it can be carried out on a small or large scale. It may be limited, or we can increase the sample size also. So a different type of demographic details are included in this patient, as like in case report and case study. Now, what are the uses of descriptive study? Actually, such kind of research design, it is not useful to test the hypothesis, but it can generate the basic information which is useful to generate the hypothesis. And it is also established the association between the two or many components. For example, the effect of meditation over the insomnia. It is the best example. Due to meditation, the intensity of the insomnia can be reduced. So meditation and insomnia, there is the close relationship. So such kind of relationship we can establish here. Now, what are the limitations of the study? That is, it is not useful, as I said earlier, it is not useful to test the hypothesis. Exactly opposite to clinical trial, because the clinical trial or many experimental or interventional trial are quietly useful to study the efficacy of particular intervention, whether it is drug, either is vaccine, either different regime or different protocol, or any other preventative lifestyle modification, and it tests the hypothesis whether it is effective or not, it is more effective or not, it is less effective or as effective as, etc. So descriptive kind of study is not useful to test the hypothesis, and generally for the descriptive type of study, mostly qualitative methods are used, and generally the outcome, that's why the outcome of the study are entirely depend upon the tool which we are using for the measurement as well as the observations. For making the to make the our descriptive study more authentic, you have to use the standard format of assessment tool. For example, if we are studying the efficacy of any intervention, that is Ayurvedic intervention for this patient having the Gridhrasi, then instead of the subjective parameter or clinical feature of that Gridhrasi, if we have assessed the patient with the help of some MRI findings, some radiological findings, or other tests like Scober test, CRT test. So such kind of authentic, objective and gold standard tool we can use to make more authentic. Next one, that is the case report, that is the case study. It is also called as case study. It is one of the type of descriptive research, and actually it is a detailed presentation of a single case. That is, it may be patient, it may be health center, or it may be a village. We can all define or we can all describe the characteristic of all these three by different kind of case report. And generally it is very useful in the clinical medicine, in the social sciences, and even management also. The main purpose of this case report or case study is to focus and share. It is also very important, because I have to, if I have seen any particular characteristic or clinical manifestation of the common disease which is not so common. So if I have to share such findings to my colleague, to my PG scholar, to my PhD scholar, etc. So the main aim of this case report is to share and focus particular clinical manifestation of the common disease. Along with that, specific type of clinical scenario of new or unfamiliar disease, I can also express or elaborate through this case study. For example, autoimmune disorder. Generally, the particular clinical manifestation of common disease in case of sciatica, generally Scober test is negative. But if in certain cases, specifically I have found it when there is some kaphaja prakriti or any vata kaphaja grudrasi, then in such type of patient there occurs scorbut test get positive. So particular clinical manifestation of common disease we can use case report. Along with that, specific interesting clinical findings in diagnostic method, in radiological method, in urine analysis. So this may be again novel one. So in sum, if we have summarized all these findings, we can say that the case report or case study is useful to generate a novel clinical evidence of unrecognized illness which you have not come across till date, and it is also useful to establish or to make a basic ground information, or to make a base or make a platform to generate hypothesis about the pathophysiology of the disease. These are some my novel cases which I have published here. First one, that is the contribution of Ayurveda in the management of paranoia, which this patient generally in modern science it is treated with some anti-inflammatory agent and steroid, which was completely managed with some herbal and herbo-mineral combinations in the Ayurveda. On the other hand, this is the management of scapular dyskinesia through a comprehensive approach by using the Ayurveda and physiotherapeutic modalities. Actually, scapular dyskinesia, the symptoms of the scapular dyskinesia, these are can be correlated with generally with the frozen shoulder, but actually it is not treat one. The scapular dyskinesia, it is the different condition, and a frozen shoulder is the entirely different condition. So these are the cases. Now, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this particular type of research design, whether it is case report or case study? First one, these are inexpensive one, because nobody, lot of resources is required. Only a single clinical material is required. It is very easy for generating for hypothesis, and specifically it is useful for uncommon clinical manifestation of both familiar and unfamiliar. As I said earlier, that is the autoimmune disorder, and it is quite less time consuming as comparative to other disorder. What are the weakness of such kind of research design? It cannot be used for testing the hypothesis, as we discussed earlier, and findings cannot be generalized due to external validity, because there are certain chances, more chances for making bias by the researcher. Now, our second is the case series. Actually, case series, in case study, we only observe the single patient or the individual one. But here, case series is the compilation of data of more than 10 patient, ideally, and it do not have any comparison group. Actually, it is very useful for the clinician to document uncommon clinical manifestation in a certain set of patient. That means the patient having the common disease, that is, it may be rheumatoid arthritis, it may be insomnia, etc. Generally, in the case series, collection of desired information about the cases or the individual which we are recruiting in our study in a larger group of subject. Ideally, it should be 10 patients with a particular disease, but according to the thumb rule, minimum it should be 12, because considering the 5% dropout, 12 patients should be recruited for the case series for making it more authentic. It describes the outcome of the group having the limited number of clinical subject, and it describes study questions may be formulated as what is happening in this case series. These are some examples of case series in Ayurveda. First one, that is the Ayurvedic therapy, Shirodhara for insomnia. And second one, that is the management of proliferative diabetic neuropathy and its associated condition with this specific Ayurvedic therapy. It is a very good study which is available on PubMed also. These are some pilot study which represent the appearance of case series, and study population is same. Here healthy volunteers are involved. Now, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this case series? As a case report, it is also inexpensive in nature because limited clinical material is required. It is very easy to perform, And most important thing, it is very good tool to identify the uncommon situation or uncommon clinical scenario of the disease. So that's why it also makes the basic background for generating the hypothesis, and it provides the descriptive data of the disease characteristics in certain set of patient, and generally it is a very short term in nature as comparative to other clinical designs. What are the weakness of case series? That is, not, it should not be used for testing hypothesis. Less reliability, as there is no any control group or comparative group. It is there occur only a single group. And there are more chances of bias, as there occur some self selection of the cases and information which is manipulated many times, which is manipulated by the researcher. So generalization of the findings or outcome of the study is not possible due to bias, such kind of bias selection and unrepresentative of subject and lack of the control group. So to overcome all these weakness, we can personally focus over all these points, that we have to strictly avoid for the bias selection of the patient, and we should recruit such kind of patient which is the which excellently represent a particular disease situation or the interest of disease. And if we keep the control group, then it will works better. Now the third descriptive studies, that is the ecological study or the correlation study, which is carried out in the population, and it is not performed at the individual level, and it is so that's why it is also called as population based survey. It can be conducted at the country level also, and at a particular region of the country also. The basic aim of such kind of survey is to understand a particular problem for a group, and we have to relate that problem with the particular cause to find out the etiopathogenesis of that particular disease. So it may be quite helpful to generate the hypothesis in such kind of patient. So that's why ecological study is also called as correlation study, because it is helpful to establish the relation between cause and effect, that is the causative factor of the disease, and outcome, that is the disease. So it is also useful to compare disease frequency, that is the incidence rate, between the different group during the same period of time or in the same population at a different point of time. For example, if we have to found the incidence rate of COVID-19 in 2019 in Delhi, and if we have to find out the incidence of COVID-19 in 2021. So such kind of comparison can be possible through ecological correlation study. Another example is incidence of hypertension due to the stress in India and USA. This is also one comparative one. And incidence of cardiovascular diseases in two different states, that is Tamil Nadu and Punjab. These are the good examples for the ecological or the correlation study. Survey, that is the survey, it is again part of the ecological study, because such ecological studies can be carried out by making the such type of survey. And survey, it consists of the two components. First component is that there is the collection of information with the subjective questions or subjective questionnaire from the study subject. These questionnaires may consist of open-ended question or close-ended question or task-based, specific task-related questions. And then after collection of data, we have to analyze it to generalize in the population. Now, what are the strength or weakness of such kind of survey? That is generally such kind of survey, it is very short term in nature. It gives rapid, the data collection is data collection is done with the help of rapid answer, which got through the various questionnaire with the different kind of questions. It helps in stimulating hypothesis for undertaking of the further analytical study, which we'll study later. Weakness, it is not useful for testing hypothesis as like case series and case study also, and it do not have individual level data because it is the population based data, so it does not includes the individual data. This is the main limitation of such kind of study, and it is very difficult to control for the confounding factor because the population is the unit of study. Now coming toward the analytical study, already we have discussed about the descriptive study, then we will focus over the analytical study. First one, in the analytical study, first important question is that whether investigator has assigned any type of intervention or not. Yep, is there any intervention? Then definitely these are the experimental study. And if there is no another kind of any kind of intervention, then it is the observational study. Second question in analytical study is that whether is there comparison group? If yes, then there is case control or cohort study. These are the good examples having the comparison group. And in descriptive study, there is no such kind of the comparative group. Now, the basic difference between the observational analytical study and experimental analysis analytical study. In observational analytical study, there is no any assignment of the intervention by the researcher. On the other hand, in the experimental study, the intervention, the researcher intervened or manipulated a certain kind of intervention in the study population or in the subject of the study. So there is in observational study there is no intervention, so that's why there is no any kind of change in the environment of the study participant in which they are living. It is as like before and after the study. But in case of experimental study, the exposure is manipulated, so that's why response of the study participant or any influence or in any change in the environment of study participant, it is the main core important topic of observation in this experimental study. Then what are the examples of observational study? For example, prevalence of COVID-19 in specific prakriti, or predominant, or that is which type of prakriti or person with which type of prakriti are more vulnerable or more susceptible for getting infection COVID-19. Another example we can give as predominance of the specific symptoms of COVID vaccine in different prakriti. As we said in our OPD also, after getting a COVID vaccination, many patients develop flu-like symptoms, or certain patients have no any symptoms. So based on that particular finding, we can design such type of study, which we are already conducting such type of study at our institute. On the other hand, in the experimental study, the example of experimental study, that is to assess or evaluate the efficacy of XYZ Churna, XYZ procedure or Basti, with that of the standard control or without control in the management of diabetes mellitus on the certain variable. It may be BSL, fasting PP, glucose tolerance test, HbA1c, etc. So these are the basic difference between the observational study and the experimental study. Now, based on the direction, observational analytical study, it can get categorized into three. First one, it is the cross-sectional one. Second, case control, and third, cohort. In cross-sectional study, the measurement of exposure or cause of the disease and outcome, that is disease, these are observed at the same time. I will give example in the next slide. Second one, case control. Here we have to observe the progression from outcome to exposure. So this is the case control study. It is retrospective one. And cohort, that is we have to observe the progression from exposure to outcome. It is prospective in nature. Generally, observational analytical study, in this study, as I said, investigator does not assign or manipulate any kind of intervention or any kind of exposure. This type of observational study have comparison group except cross-sectional study. There is no randomization at all. And second one, we have in such kind of analytical study, we have to only analyze the journey between exposure and outcome. So first study, that is the cross-sectional study. As I said earlier, we are observing the exposure and outcome at the same time. So that's why it is called as instantaneous study, transfer study, and simultaneous study. This cross-sectional study is useful to study the prevalence rate of the disease. That's why it is called as prevalence study. What is the prevalence? That means prevalence of any condition, that is the commonness. That is how much extent specific condition is common one. So it is called as prevalence. And what is the incidence? Incidence means the frequency of the disease or occurrence of the disease. It is called as incidence. Both things are different one. So it is a cross-sectional study. It is useful to measure the prevalence or commonness of that particular entity in the population. So it is called as prevalence study. Cross-sectional analysis is also the alternative synonyms of the cross-sectional studies, because it is carried out in a cross-section of a some subject which are representative of the population. So that's why it is called as cross-sectional analysis. And a unit of study, generally it is individual based study which are selected based on the particular variable of interest. If I have to study the effect of that is alcohol intake and the development of the hypertension. So my particular variables of interest in this study will be the hypertensive patient. So according to our interest of research, we have to find out the study subject. It is a very cross-sectional study. It is a very most common and very widely useful analytical study. Specifically, it is used for the school, hospital, and community survey. Generally, what is happening, because we are measuring the outcome and exposure at the same time. So that's why the research question, the nature of research question will be what is happening. That is whether alcohol intake is affecting or the hypertension or not. It is our question. It do not have any comparison group. In this type of cross-sectional study, there occur collection on observation of data regarding health and non-health information, and it is a cross section. As I said earlier, it is a cross section of a population which represent the population at one specific time, at a specific time. Second one, cross sectional study. The time limitation for such kind of study may be minimum 2 to 4 weeks to month, depending upon the sample size. It may get varied. If your sample size is more, then many months can be required. So these are the description of the cross-sectional study. Now, how we can collect the information which is essential for conducting the cross-sectional study. For that purpose, you can take help from the telephonic interview, or you can discuss with the study subject by face-to-face interviews also, or in such a big in such COVID scenario, we can collect the information by mail questionnaire or electronic mail or Google form, etc. Other self-administered questionnaire is also helpful for collecting the data, but it should be get validated from the expert in the medical education. Otherwise, it is not authentic one. So if we are if we have to observe the prevalence rate of Prakriti in a diabetic patient, then if I am doing the Prakriti Parikshan of the particular patient, then the questionnaire which I have formulated to select the type of Prakriti, it should be get validated, or I have to use the standard software for the Prakriti. Otherwise, it will there occur many bias also. Now, what are the uses of cross-sectional study? As we said earlier, it is prevalent study, it is instantaneous study, it is transfer study. What are the main uses for cross-sectional study? First one, cross-sectional study is useful to measure the burden or magnitude of the particular disease. That is, we can give example of that. What is the prevalence rate of dental caries in a school-going children? Our population is fixed here, school-going children, and we are measuring the prevalence of the dental caries. Second, use of such cross-sectional studies to measure the prevalence of disease or its risk factor in clinic-based sample for a defined population. What is the prevalence of physical inactivity among school children, or what is the prevalence of specific Prakriti involved in a patient with hypertension or diabetes mellitus? These are the specific example of these two uses. Another, in a particular clinic-based sample, what is the prevalence of hypertension in XY city? Or to rule out the incidence of hypertension, during planning or during conducting this cross-sectional study, we can collect the data regarding the risk factor associated with that disease. because if I am keeping data or I am collecting data regarding the prevalence of hypertension in Delhi, then at the same time when I will take interview or some mail questionnaire, then I will denote the type of exposure, that is whether patient is taking alcohol, if there's any cigarette smoking, etc. So is there any stress history? So all types of associated risk factor I can evaluated or I can collected here. Third use of cross-sectional study is to assess the magnitude of health needs of a population, to set priorities for disease control and plan further allocation or delivery of multiple clinical services or health resources in the society. For example, what is the satisfaction rate among patients attending the government hospital in Nagpur? If from this observational study I have found out that their patient is not satisfied, or 95% who are visiting the hospital are not satisfied, then what is the lacuna? I will in questionnaire I will cover it, what may be the possible lacunas for that, and after completion of this study I will focus over that lacuna to improve it or to rectify it, so that so ultimately the satisfaction rate can be arise. Next one, that is to understand the distribution of health problem in a specific place or in a specific location. The good example is that what is the prevalence of diarrhea in specific village? If XYZ there is many patients having diarrhea, but when I will conduct a cross-sectional survey in that particular region, then I will find out that children are more sufferer for diarrhea than any adult or geriatric population. Then I will rule out the other causes, possible etiological causes for that particular diarrhea which was occurring in children. Among children, which age group is more vulnerable for getting such type of diarrhea? So along with the main outcome, multiple variables can be assessed. So these are the examples of cross-sectional study. These are again which is published data which is available on the PubMed, that is observational study based on the prevalence of essential hypertension in different types of Prakriti in Varda city. And second one, observational study protocol in prevalence of non-insulin dependent diabetes in Varda city. Both research articles are available on the ResearchGate also. I am showing these images of particular article in this presentation because if we have to plan some specific research study and you are not getting any direction or any kind of query, you can refer such kind of articles to plan your expected study design. Now, what are the strengths of the cross-sectional study? As I said, completion of the study takes place in a very quick matter because we can take as an interview or any electronic data also. It is very easy to perform, quite inexpensive in nature as comparative to the interventional data, and it can be done in a setting also. Data collection regarding one or more multiple variables and outcome can be observed at a single point of time, as I said earlier, in the hypertensive patient. And both prevalence and association between the cause and effect can be identified very well in this type of study, and it can generate hypothesis but can't test it. So I have taken this point in the limitations of this study. It can be used to rule out the incidence as well as the rare diseases, that is cancer, because in the rare diseases there is no population, the study subject should be limited, so that's why it is not possible to conduct such type of study in rare condition such as autoimmune disorder or cancer, etc. It cannot test hypothesis. It cannot be used to analyze the effect of exposure over a specific period of time. At a single point of time it is possible, but is over a period of time it is not possible due to bias. Exposure and outcome cannot be linked very well in this kind, and investigator has no any kind of control over the confounding factor or the exposure of the interest, and so it is not useful to study the disease etiology also. Now the next our observational study is case control study. The name is reflecting that it consists of the two groups. There is a comparison group is present. One is case and second is control. It is also called as case reference study or retrospective study because the progression of this study is carried from, that is outcome to exposure. So that's why it is called as a retrospective study. First one, it is conducted on the population based. What has happened, as I said, it is retrospective one. Exposure and outcome is already happened. So that's why what has happened, it is totally retrospective one case control study. And study protocol specifically focused over the progression from effect to cause and already occurred. But for that case control study, there is requirement of standard cases. Standard cases, that means the people or person having the specific clinical feature of that particular disease or condition or interest which we have to work, and a suitable control. And it is also called as comparison group, the people without selected disease from the same place or the population. After that, after setting or after making the two group, that is first one case and control group, then we have to go retrospectively. We have to rule out the history of each and every patient, and then in next one, matching of cases and control is the heart of the study, because we have to compare between the history of both cases and control, that is the person who having disease and the person who not having those disease of interest. So there is the matching of cases and control is the main core part of this study. Now the example of that study, first one, as I said earlier, case study, that is it is retrospective one and it is the progression of outcome to the exposure. Here patient with insomnia, it is the outcome. Insomnia, it is the outcome of the study. We will go retrospectively for to find out the cause, that is excessive use of mobile up to late night. It may be one of the cause, and no use of mobile up to late night. So another, this is the case group. Second one, patient without insomnia, it is called as control group. I will again observe the history regarding whether such kind of patient is using excessive mobile up to late night or not using. So this is the good example of the case control study. Another example in Ayurvedic terms, that is the Amvata. It is the outcome of the study. And when we go through our classical narration of Amvata, there is described as Divaswap or Abhishanda Ahara. These are the main causative factor for the Amvat. So when there is the one group, that is the case group, that the patient which are diagnosed with the clinical or standard features of the Amvat, and another group, that is the control group, the person who was not suffering from the Amvat. And in both group, we will take the history regarding the causative factor. That means if he or she is exposing, that is for Divaswap, he was used to take Divaswap, or he was used to take Abhishandi Ahara or not. And same history will be ruled out by the patient who are not having any kind of Abhishandi Ahara or Divaswap. So it is also applicable for the control group. So such kind of study is designed in case control study. Now, what are the elements of the case control study, or what are the components? What are the steps for conducting case control study? First one, that is selection of cases, that is the diagnosed cases with classical feature of that particular disease. Second one, selection of control, that is patient without that disease, and then collection of valid information or comparison of the history regarding the exposure factor or cause between these two groups, and then the data analysis will be carried out. These are the main component of the case control study. There are some examples and published article regarding this case control study. First article is analysis of etiological factor of dyslipidemia. It is a very good case control study which nicely elaborated the various causative factor which is defined in the Medoroga in our classical text, very exclusive manner. And second one is consequences of excessive use of Amla Rasa, that is case control study. You can refer both of these articles if you are planning for such type of case study. Now, what are the strength and limitations of a case control study? First one, case control study. As it is retrospective one, it is a very fast, simple and economical because study population, study sample is already there. Exposure and outcome both are already happened. So it is a very fast design, extremely useful to investigated causes of disease, especially rare diseases. It is a very good for any rare outcome or disease or the disease which having the long latency period, and it can very well establish the cause and effect relationship, that is the causative factor of the disease, and outcome, that is the disease. Multiple exposure or risk factor and uncommon disease can be examined at the same time also while taking the history of that particular patient. It requires relatively few patients than that of the cohort study, which we'll study later, and logistic very easy. On the limitations, selection of control or in comparison, it is quite difficult one. And second one, it cannot measure the incidence, prevalence or relative risk. Actually, there is a high susceptibility to bias, or sometimes patient give the wrong history, so multiple times there occur some problems. Only one study outcome can be studied, and high susceptibility to bias can adjust for confounding factor as it is retrospective in nature. Now, last study, that is observational study, analytical observational study, that is the cohort study. The cohort study, actually it consists of the observation for the progression from exposure to outcome, that is the causative factor of the disease to the disease formation. So it is prospective in nature. It is also called as follow-up study because we are taking follow-up of the patient after getting certain kind of exposure to the subject. It is also called, that's why it is called a longitudinal one. And with the help of this cohort study, we can determine the incidence rate of that particular disease condition in the society. So it is called as cohort study. Actually, it is a very good observational epidemiological study, which is can be done at a definite beginning and end also. It is an individual based study. It is begins with the exposed and non-exposed cohort, and it is very useful to study the incidence rate and prognosis of the disease because it is the follow-up study, and it is very essential. It is very useful to distinguish between the cause of the disease and the effect of the disease. But for that purpose, first there is requirement of a group of disease free people with common statistical characteristic, that is it is called as cohort. Actually, cohort is the military term in Roman. That is cohort means it is a group of soldiers, that is the 300 to 400 soldiers having the who carries the common instrument or weapons. So it is called as cohort. So in cohort study, we have to identify one such a group having the common characteristic, that is gender or age or any year of marriage or any exposed to any natural disaster such as earthquake, etc. So it is called as cohort. And at the same time, we have to take history for it is exposed or non-exposed to particular exposure, and then we have to do comparison of outcome using the relative risk. So it is the these are some examples. So these are, first we will see the types of cohort study. It is again prospective one, retrospective one, and bidirectional one. Here I will specify the with examples also. First one, prospective cohort study, that is by the time when studies start, exposure and disease has not yet occurred. For example, here I am giving an example, that is studies of Ahara and Vihara conducted among Ayurveda college students, that is prospective cohort. Here specific Ahara Vihara, but at this stage I don't know those type of diet or lifestyle they are living or they are eating any kind of food which is harmful to his or her in future. So such kind of studies exposure is yes or not, it is patient person exposed or not. So studies of Ahara Vihara conducted among Ayurveda college students, so it may get it such the Ahara Vihara which we are exposing by particular students, maybe in one group they will get good health due to that particular ahara, and another group will suffer from a specific disease condition. So it is the prospective one. Second example, that is the Framingham Heart Study, which is the very old study which was conducted in initiated in the 1940, and basic aim of this study to rule out the various causative factor for the heart condition or risk factors for the cardiovascular diseases. These were the prospective in nature. On the retrospective cohort study, both the exposure and disease has already occurred when you start the study. The incidence rate, there is some example, that is the incidence rate of death in a patient with urinary bladder cancer working in the dye industry. It is a very good example of the retrospective cohort studies, because as I said earlier, cohort study that will go in forward condition from exposure to outcome. That is the persons who are working in the dye industry, they are quite exposure to aniline, which is a carcinogenic in nature, and ultimately in future such patient may get affected due to the urinary bladder carcinoma. Such type of study was retrospectively carried out in the Britain. So it is a very good example of retrospective cohort study. Second study, that is the clinical outcome among COVID-19 patient managed with modern and traditional Siddha medicine. It is a very good study, that is a very retrospective and cohort study which was carried out in a 3 states, that is Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. So it is a very good example, and both articles are available on the PubMed. So basic difference that in the cohort, retrospective cohort and cross, that is the case control, both are retrospective in nature, but there is some minor difference in that in the retrospective cohort, in this study there is the inspection of the individual particularly at the exposure based. On the other hand, in the case control study, which is also retrospective in nature, but here we have to inspect the individual or the study object for the outcome base. This is the basic difference between these two study. Bidirectional one, the combination of these two approaches. Example of this bidirectional study, that is it is the ameliorating effect of anti-Alzheimer drugs on the bidirectional association between type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer disease. So it is a very good example of bidirectional cohort study. So these are available on PubMed also. Now, what are the steps in cohort study? What are the components? There are total 5 components of the cohort study. First one, the selection of cohort. That means identify the study subject of our research of interest. Second one, obtain baseline data on the exposure, measure the exposure at the start. And we have to note particular event, time, duration at that time. Second one, select a subclassification or the comparative group which is not exposed, and then we have to take follow-up and measure the outcome in the standard format, and then we have to make the data analysis. Now, design of cohort study, as I said earlier, it is prospective in nature, so that's why we will focus first, that is the exposure, that is the cause of the disease. First one, that is the patient, there is regular pranayam, that is first group, that is this is the cohort. Regular pranayam, how many among them get suffered from COVID-19, and second one, the patient who are used to regular pranayam but without COVID-19, and another group, that is there is no kind of any exposure, that is no pranayam. This is the comparative group in the cohort study, the patient with COVID-19 and no even after not doing any kind of pranayam practices, patient without COVID-19. So we have to assess or observe the incidence rate of that particular entity. Now, strength of the cohort study, it is very good to generate good evidence of exposure and disease, that is very effective to establish the relation between cause and effect of the disease. Many different outcomes for the same exposure can be measured because the investigator has some control over it, and it is the prospective study, so that's why it is very possible. And fun should be more because it is quite long lasting and time consuming job. It can assess causes, incidence and risk factor at the same time also. It is very useful for uncommon and rare exposure also. There is less possibility of selection bias and biased exposure data because due to its prospective nature. I said earlier it is time consuming. Prospective है तो expensive in nature when large sample size. It cannot study the rare outcome, or it is not useful for such a disease having the long latency period and more chances of confounding factors, so we have to nullify it. And the outcome data may be biased if do not have a good follow-up in exposed and unexposed population, because it can introduce or it can bring a certain bias is your study. There is possibility to drop out the patient due to the long-term follow-up. Now, these are all over the analytical study. Now, we will focus over the second type of the study, that is the experimental or interventional study, depending upon the assigning of intervention or not. This such kind of experimental or interventional study are considered as a gold standard for the various scientific research since 20th century, and it is a very good and authentic tool for research now. It can be categorized into preclinical and clinical phases, and preclinical studies can be further subdivided into laboratory one and animal study one. Animal study can again divide into pharmacological toxicity in vitro and vivo. In pharmacological study, we can assess the effect of various antihypertensive, anti-inflammatory, or anti-diabetic effect of any drug or intervention. In toxicity study, that is acute toxicity, subacute toxicity, or embryo toxicity, or such type of toxicity study can be carried out through this design. In vitro study, the biological samples which are outside the body in vitro, and in vivo study, the sample is done over in the various animal. Second one, clinical study, based on the different head, it can again get categorized into different sub classification, that is based on aim, treatment, prevention, diagnostic, screening, and quality life of trial. Treatment clinical trial or treatment interventional trial is entirely based to study the efficacy of new drug, new intervention, new treatment protocol, new new regime, etc. For prevention trial, it can introduce, or it is entirely based on the efficacy of any lifestyle modification or any breathing exercises, or etc. In diagnostic, it will represent the effect of any diagnostic tool, method, procedure, etc. Screening for the early detection of the disease, and quality of life of patient. If patient is suffering from the chronic illness such as cancer or stroke, then to enrich the quality of that particular patient and to decrease the social stigma in that particular patient, for the rehabilitation purpose, such kind of study can be carried out. Based off randomization, as already told about, that is the non-randomized clinical trial and randomized clinical trial. Based on blinding, single, double, and triple blinding. Based on site, some are lab study, some are clinical study, some are community study, and based on design, that is the crossover one and parallel one. These are the sub classification of clinical interventional trial. Now, which kind of intervention can be possible in experimental study? It may be new drug or vaccine, new regime, new treatment, new medical healthcare technologies also, even diagnostic procedure or test also, new any organizational delivery system of healthcare, many healthcare policies also, new methods of primary prevention, and new programs for screening for early detection of the disease also. These are the different tools which we can use. These are the different interventions which can be performed and which can be studied through different kind of experimental interventional trial. Now, what are the strengths and weaknesses? Because these are the experimental study are considered as a very effective research design to translate the result of basic scientific research in better way for prevention, diagnosis, and early treatment of the disease. It is a most convincing, flexible, and appropriate design. So it is, I already told that it is a gold, it is considered as the gold standard in this century. It is a very efficient research design to prove the cause-effect relationship. It is very easy to control over the known and unknown confounding factor in the research design. It has a huge translational value because it is more useful for the community, and it is bias free and maximum reliability of data. On the other hand, there are certain limitations, certain few limitations of the control clinical trial. That is, it is quite expensive one. Ethical issues are there. So we have to take ethical approval letter prior starting this trial, and requires more resources because it requires more time also, and more economical support, financial support also, and it is quite time consuming one. Now if we when we are conclude the all types of this research design, there are certain factor on that basis we can differentiate it. For example, cross sectional study, case control study, and cohort study, there is no any kind of intervention because these are completely observational study. But RCT, there is a intervention. In the temporal sequence, cross sectional, it is helpful to evaluate risk factor and outcome at the same time. Case control, we have to study the association between outcome first and then the risk factor. It is retrospectively. Cohort, risk factor first and then outcome. And RCT, first intervention then outcome. This is the proper sequence in the such kind of research design. Sampling in cross sectional, sampling is essential. Case control, matching, because comparative group is present. Cohort, comparative group is present. And RCT, randomization generally done. Now, how we can select? I have tried to summarize it in a this schematic manner. Selection of research diet as per question. What is my question? If I have to evaluate I have to measure the magnitude of burden of any kind of illness, then I will go for the cross-sectional study. If I have to estimate the prevalence rate of a particular disease condition or a particular state, then I will prefer cross-sectional one. But if I have to determine the incidence rate of particular disease condition, then I will go for the cohort because it is the prospective one. But I have to focus more over the causative factor or cause-effect relationship. I have to rule out the various risk or aggravating factor for the disease. And moreover, I am also interested to determine the prognosis of particular disease, such as in rare diseases. Then case control, cohort, and RCT, these are the good example for my study, for my research proposal. If I want to study the efficacy, I want to assess the efficacy, treatment efficacy, or any new intervention or diagnostic method and cost effectiveness, then RCT is the very good example of that. Now, I have to summarize here. Which factor should be kept in mind while selecting any kind of study design? That is, first one, there is the need of research topic for individual and society, that is area of interest should be the need of our. Otherwise, if already work is over and if you are doing repeating, there is no meaning in your research. So need of the research topic which will be beneficial for individual level at community level also. So it is very essential. Second one, type of research which we have to conduct. If I have to do only secondary research, then systematic review, meta-analysis, these are the good example for that. But if I have to do primary research, I want to do some novel concept, then I have to perform for the different type of descriptive as well as analytical study. Study of literature review in detail by the researcher, it is very, very essential to find out the research gap, and on that basis I can design my research proposal. Types of hypothesis or research question. What is my research question? That is what is happening or what has happened. What has happened? It is if it is my research question, then I have to select a cross-sectional study or the case control one. So depending upon the type of hypothesis, research question can be study design can be varied. If I have to study or assess the efficacy, or I have to compare the efficacy of two intervention, then I have to select the research design as RCT or NRCT. So this is also important type of hypothesis and research question. Second one, before going to select a research design, first I have to define aim and objective in a very precise manner. What is my aim of that research? After that, well defined and measuring outcome. That means if I am studying any study on diabetes, then outcome, whether I have using which type of variable for that. So here I have to take only standard variable for the assessment of the result. Second one, Knowledge of possible confounding factor. This is also very essential to enhance the authenticity of your project. So while selecting this study, you have to keep in mind also. Then most important thing while selecting research design is availability of resources. That is money, infrastructure, manpower, because survey, case series, case report, cross sectional, these are quite inexpensive one. So if there is limited financial support, then you can choose such options. Otherwise, there is good infrastructure, there is no financial issues, manpower is very good, then adequate, then you can choose RCT, which is the gold standard one. Time feasibility, again very important. Generally, if there is time is permitted, then you can go for the cross sectional one or case control one. But in such condition, you cannot use the cohort study because it is prospective one and quite long time. So along with that, you have to also focus over availability of object or study population. If you are doing work on the rare population, so you have to choose the study design regarding cohort study. But if there is no patient of such kind of illness, then it may be quite difficult to conclude your target in a stipulated period. So availability of clinical object or study population or study subject is very, very essential. Most important thing of doing any kind of research, that is honest, devoted and enthusiastic research while selecting any kind of research. And consideration of the strength and weakness of the each design, which I have elaborated in the previous slide, is very essential while selecting any kind of research design. So when you will go for selecting, you are giving proposal for any research proposal, you have to keep all these factor into consideration, and you can go ahead for the selection of proper design. So my message to audience, act of conducting research should not be formality, because such research can misguide the further researcher and may become hazardous for the propagation of Ayurveda. So it is my humble request, with the proper selection of study design, we can definitely make our research fruitful, authentic and more scientific, that can become helpful to generate clinical evidence in the Ayurveda. So thank you very much for giving such a nice chance to share my some views regarding this topic. Actually, this is a very vast topic. I have tried here to conclude in a precise manner and based on the some practical experiences. If you have any queries, you can ask.
Thank you, ma'am, for this great explanation of study design and its classification and individual strengths and weaknesses of each particular study design. Now let's move further. Participants can ask their queries. Please unmute yourself and ask.
I would feel happy if they are in question.
Hello.
Hello, yes. Hi, yes.
Ma'am, I have a
बोलिए.
question. Ma'am, there is any requirement of ethical committee clearance for survey data studies?
Yes. It is very essential. Though you are conducting, if you are conducting at any research institute level, first two ethical issues are there. Second one, in survey condition, you are not performing any intervention or you are not assigning any intervention. But for the in medical legal aspect, first one, you have to take the informed consent of the participant, and simultaneously for to avoid any kind of any publication issue in of your research project in future, it should be better to go for the ethical approval letter for such kind of data.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, if we are going for any survey studies for our in clinic ways, so ma'am, we require ethical clearance and it is must.
No, it is not 100% mandatory, but informed consent of the patient should be taken. And to generalize the data, it should be very necessary if you have taken the any ethical approval from any research institute. It will be work better
Okay, okay,
for the
okay, okay.
further publication purpose.
Okay. Thank you
Generally,
so much.
ethical issues are more critical in case of RCT or any interventional study when you are intervening or assigning any kind of intervention to a particular group. Generally, in survey type of study, there is no such kind of intervention. So it is not 100% mandatory. Before, but after completion of your research study, you can publish your research. So for getting more weightage, it should be better if you if you focus or if you try for the ethical clearance letter.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Is there any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please ask.
Ma'am, what are the steps for validating a questionnaire?
What?
What are the steps
Yes.
for validate a questionnaire, ma'am?
Statistic.
Ma'am, how to validate a questionnaire?
Yes. There are two options. First one, you can use the software which are already available. First, you have to select on which variable you are doing work. And for example, you are doing work on the Prakriti, and you have to do the Prakriti assessment or Agni assessment or the Koshtha assessment of that particular patient. But before, if you have to you have made some specific kind of questionnaire, and it should be get validated from the expert who are in medical education. Otherwise, you can use the various software which have already copyrighted or which are already available on the authenticated public media data, such as Ayursoft Prakriti app. So such kind of standard app you can use to get validation. Or in absence of that, if you have to get validation of that questionnaire, as I said earlier, the expert in medical education can give a specific opinion, and they can explain you all the lacunas in your questionnaire to improve to or enhance the quality of that questionnaire. Because according to the content of your research proposal, according to the aim and objective, all components of the study should be reflected in your questionnaire. It is very essential. It is not not be so superficial, because our aim and objective should be fulfilled with the after filling such kind of questionnaire. So it is very essential to get validated.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Is there any questions? Shall we conclude, sir?
Okay.
If there are any queries, they can ask freely.
Okay, there is a no question further. Now we
Okay.
conclude this. Myself, Dr. Bhavna Bhardwaj, PG Scholar, Panchkarma Department of Ayurveda Unani Tibia College and Hospital. I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Poonam Savarkar ma'am, for enlightening us with their knowledge. Today's webinar was full of knowledge about the study design is type, its classification, and also clear the explanation, the difference between the study design and individual strengths and weaknesses, and also guide about the type of design as per their research question. And lastly, thanks to all participants from behalf of Panchkarma department for patiently listening this webinar. Tomorrow lecture will be started on the same time from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you very much.